I'll count us in. Talking Nets with UK Nets fans in 5, 4, 3. Nah, not yet. I gotta get some water and close the door.
Tease. You gotta give you gotta get people juiced up for it. How's it?
I was what you wearing there, Matt? Vince Carter, J Kidd, J Kidd. I very nearly put on a J Kidd, but the grey one.
Oh, nice.
And let me.
One of us would have had to check
Instagram. Everybody smile for the camera. In 1, 2, 3. Got it. All right. Tweet that out.
Yeah.
From Talking Nets. Live now. I'll worry about tagging you guys later. Okay, share this, copy. Pretty soon I'll have somebody that'll just do all this for me. I hope. All right. UK Nets fans, BKN. All right. Done. Tweeted out, and now I just need to. I already put the link on YouTube, so we're good. All right, now let's start this thing. Appreciate the patience out of people in the chat, as well as my guests. Usually I put like a little comment that says episode starts at whatever time. We are now 2:18 in. All right, so let's do this. All right, here we go. Nets World, baby. I got the Nets World shirt on.
Love that.
Talking Nets, episode 138. Talking Nets with UK Nets fans. Got my Nets fans in the building. Matt with the Kevin Durant hat, other way. Matt with the Kevin Durant hat right there. Theo underneath. And Tyler right there under me. Obviously, I'm Keith. And there hasn't been any games in, 6 days or something. The games have been postponed. COVID protocols. Last episode, we screamed that Kyrie is back. It happened, but we'll talk about that and more with my friends from across the pond. Talking Nets, let's get it. Yes, sir. Welcome back to Talkin Nets, episode 138. I got 3 guests with me. I know a lot of people are probably tired of looking at me on YouTube by myself, listening to me on the podcast go on by myself. I do that on New York radio every night. Had to mix it up on the pod, and this is the first of what I like to call the Nets worldwide, wide podcast series on Talking Nets, right? They say there's no Nets fans. That's a lie. There are Nets fans all over the world. And today I bring you a couple mates from across the pond. My accent is non-existent, but you'll hear plenty of accents on this podcast. Let's go around and introduce yourselves. We'll start with Matt. We'll go to Theo. We'll go around the horn, and we'll keep that same cadence as we talk about topics and different things. Matt, you got it. Take it away.
What's good? My name's Matt. You'll know me if you follow me on Twitter at UK Nets fans. 1/3 of the BK to UK British Brooklyn Nets podcast. And yeah, Nets fan since 2013-14, the PJ Carlissimo era. And yeah, talking every week about all things Nets and flying the black and white flag from 3,000 miles away from Barclays.
Yeah, I'm Theo, also a podcast host, 1/3 of Met the Criteria podcast. We are a UK-based basketball pod. I wish we were specialised in the Nets. Sometimes it feels like we are with how much I talk about them, but we are actually an all-NBA pod. Check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Met the Criteria. But I'm just here to talk about the Nets. I've been a Nets fan since I vacated in Brooklyn in the 15-16 season. Watched us lose the last game of the season against the Raptors. Worst record in the league. And I fell in love and I thought, you know what, this is the team for me. And I've never looked back since.
I'm Tyler. I'm not a podcast host, which is good. One of us isn't. I've been a Nets fan now for 7 seasons, I think. Similar to Theo, vacated in New York. They were on a road trip, so went to Brooklyn. Watched a god-awful game against the 76ers, which I think each team barely broke 80 points, but was hooked. And been coming back since.
Simple as that. Everyone's got a story. I love learning about people's fandom, people's stories, how you became a Nets fan, what game you saw, what moment it was for you, especially for guys that have to watch the game hours after us. So it's freshly 4:41 in New York in the Eastern time zone. It is 9:41 where these guys are. So it's beginning to be night. The sun is setting here. The sun has already set across the pond. Can you guys share your experience of setting your schedules, deciding what games to watch, West Coast games, how that affects you? Because tonight we were supposed to have a West Coast game, the start of a West Coast trip in Portland. We don't. But can you guys talk about your experience trying to watch the Nets and keep your schedule and your work schedule and your regular life together with your fandom?
It's a tricky one. So when the schedule comes out, ahead of every season, the scheduled day is a big day, especially for UK Nets fans, because we circle the games. And I think there were 7 or 8 games this season where it was like 11 p.m. tip, and that's amazing. So we can get in for 11, and we don't even have to have a tactical nap to get ready for the game. But generally it's probably 12:30, so midnight. That we kind of, if we want to stay up, then I'll hit the hay at 10. I'm a 34-year-old man with a 3-year-old kid, so I haven't got it in me anymore to just power through. So I'm hitting the sheets at 10, setting an alarm for 12, getting up, coffee goes on, I got some snacks on. But yeah, in all honesty, it's not too bad. Fortunately, I'm blessed that I work from home. I got my office, and if I don't stay up for the game, I can watch the game on League Pass the following day, and just kind of watch it at my leisure. I don't mind spoilers and stuff like that. I can't not know. I've got that FOMO. I can't not know the score. So the first thing I do when I wake up is check the scores, check the box score, check the extended highlights on the NBA app. But that's how it works for me. That's how it keeps me working. There's I stayed up for every game of the playoffs, which when it gets down to game 7 and it's is really towards the end of the game, and you look at your watch and it's 3:30 a.m. and you're shouting at the screen, hoping not to wake your family up. It can get dicey, but no, that's how it is for me. I don't know about how these guys get done.
So last season, I managed to watch every game live, every East Coast, every home game I managed to watch live, and it wasn't too bad. I don't know. I think that must have been the last of my youthful vigor, was being able to stay up. But I'm knocking on the door of 30, and every time I stay up for an East Coast game now, I am flagging the day after. So I'm having to be a little bit more tactical with which games I stay up to tune. I stay up to watch. Sorry, it's not a lot of fun. It's not a lot of fun, but we've got to do what we've got to do. It's rare that I'll watch a West Coast game unless it's a top of the table clash. Like obviously you'd have to stay up for a Lakers game or a Golden State match. I'm looking forward to those ones. But again, it's all about timing your naps. Like Matt said, if you could try and go straight through, you've got no chance. You're out of it. So It's all about the tactical nap, planning, what time you get up even the day before, what time you get up out of bed in the morning to make sure you've got it planned to the minute. Similar to Matt, I mean, watching Game 7 against the Bucks, when KD hit that shot at the end of regulation, we all thought it was a 3. I screamed the house down. Like I'd nearly got a divorce. Like I was that loud. Everybody was up. Kid was up. No one was sleeping through that. Only to find out it wasn't even a 3. So it was almost not. It was still worth it. I'd still do it again. I'm sorry to my wife, but it needs to be done. I think when you get these big moments like this, you've got to be part of it. You can't be watching that on catch up, can you?
No. I'm very similar to you, Theo. I think I catch most Eastern games live. West Coast games are a complete no-go. I don't even try and stay up. Again, similar to Matt, I get FOMO, really, really big FOMO. So I'll wake up at 3:30, check score, but I just can't bring myself to start watching it. I'll just go back to sleep and then just catch up in the morning. I don't do tactical naps. I'm either all in or I'm out. Again, like Matt, I work from home. I'm blessed to be able to kind of get up and just turn my laptop on and get cracking. But if I'm up, I'm up. If I try and take a tactical nap, I always wake up halfway through the third quarter and I'm just like, yeah, I'll stay in bed now. So, yeah, a little bit younger, but again, still got a 3-year-old. So I've got to be careful when Kevin Durant sinks those shots. But, yeah, this season's been all right.
How did you guys feel last year watching the playoffs? How was that for you? Before we move on, that's one thing that's like a common denominator with Nets fans. It's a shared pain we have. I'll speak on my experience. I went to Game 7, and I have a video online of me not celebrating when Kevin Durant made the 2-pointer. Because I literally was like, I saw in the arena, I had good seats. I saw the Bucks pointing to the line, and I knew that they were going to review it, and they put the 3-pointer sign up like we hit it. And then when they reviewed it, I just was like, we're not going to win this game, man. That was it. If you would have did it there, we would have won the game. And I was like on the verge of tears, not from losing the game, but just all of the emotion in the building, and then realizing like, the Nets season is over and we didn't win the championship, and I got out of the Barclays Center so fast.
You knew from KD's face as well, man. He knew. I think he knew. He knew.
Like, yep.
He turned around and he knew what was up, man.
He wasn't celebrating like he hit it. He knew that he was a little bit too close, maybe like that close.
Yeah, just we all know he wears size 18s when he should wear size 17s as well. So that's done us, but. Yeah, I thought it was a 3, like these guys say. I did this like internal scream where I was just jumping but didn't dare make a sound. But so obviously where I've got UK Nets fans, they're like the UK community. There's a fan page for every team, and we all get on real well. We've all got group chats and all stuff like that. And whenever we're sort of chipping off and having banter between each other, they'll still drop in a screen grab of that KD toe on the line just to simmer us Nets fans back down again. But I'm trying to suppress that memory, but yeah, it was tough, man.
The worst thing about it was that, like, the weight of it. It's the hope that gets you. That's what they say in it. It's the hope that gets you. And from the start of the season, it was in the Nets' hands. It was the Nets to lose. And then James Harden came on board, and it was definitely the Nets to lose. And then one by one in the playoffs, we're watching them drop like flies. Kai goes down, Harden goes down, and like the hopes of the season just fading away, and it's gutting. Like, it was gutting to watch. And then when Durant hits that, what we thought was the 3 at the time, it was just an ecstatic moment that we could still do it. At the time, we didn't know how long Irving was out for. Harden was back on the court. You'd have to expect he'd maybe sort of play on a little bit in the next series. So we win that game, who knows? I know KD's come out since and said, no way I could play every minute of the game like for the rest of another series. I didn't have that in me. Fair enough, but none of that mattered at the time. All that mattered was that we were those like 4 inches away from, in my mind, the title. I think if we'd won that game, I thought we probably were going to win it all. So it really was heartbreak. And to come into this season, I think it's really sort of intensified everything even more, the way that we went out last time. So it's really set the scene really nicely for a comeback tour this time, I think.
Comeback tour. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't know what was going on. I swore it was a 3. And like you say, you do that celebration. I was jumping around the living room celebrating. And when I sat back down and it was even, I was like, huh? What? I had to pause it, go back and look at the score and be like, what? Where's the 1 come from? And then it sunk in when we was in the Discord, people saying it's a 2. I was like, oh yeah, Jesus. And they started showing the replays. The coverage in the UK is terrible for it. They didn't even start talking about it till way after. So in hindsight now, with Kai and Harden's injury, I don't think he would have gone and won it. I really don't. So there's a silver lining there. But yeah, comeback tour for me, big comeback tour this year. And I'm not even worried about what's going on now. It's about what's going on in 5 months for me.
All right, well, I think we have our first question that we can take. We'll take more questions at the end, but this is a good one for you guys. When did the Nets become popular in the UK? Are they a favorite over there?
That's a good question. No, go for it, Tyler.
I was just going to say, for me, speaking, and Matt, I think me and Matt went over to again at a similar time, but the Nets weren't very good when I started following basketball, So when I went over to New York, although the Knicks were on a road game, I think, tickets at Madison Square Gardens were $100, $150, $200, whereas I'm pretty sure me and my wife picked up 2 tickets to the Barclays for like $40. So it was kind of, I wasn't really into American sports. It was, you're in New York, you might as well do it. So we done it, and I was like, wow, this is actually really good. I like this. And it was just kind of like root for the team that you went and watched first. So the first couple of seasons weren't very good, but I suppose affordability for me is how I got into it.
Yeah, I think so. So, but the NBA in general in the UK, although basketball is the second most widely played team sport behind football, it's if you're an NBA fan in the UK, it's still quite niche. And even within that niche, I didn't see any other Nets fans. Big shout out to a podcast called Double Clutch UK, who have been covering the NBA podcasting since 2012. So they're OGs over here.
Before it was cool. Before it
was cool. But so no, it's funny. So the origins of the UK Nets fans account was I was kind of tweeting along and all this kind of stuff just underneath my personal socials. And there's a group of guys who kind of look after the UK community on social called NBA UK fans, run by 5 guys on Twitter and Instagram and all that kind of good stuff. And they kind of facilitate all the community for all the fan pages. Turns out there was no Nets fan page active. So I said to those guys, I was like, look, this is just I've been following the Nets since 13, 14. Now, this is probably 2017, 18. I was like, look, there's no way I can start a Nets fan page now that the clean sweep tweets just landed without me sounding like a bandwagoner. But I just had to do what I had to do. It's generally in the UK, all the places where you'd go from the UK to America on holiday, their sports teams are real popular. So we got loads of Orlando fans because Disneyland. We've got loads of Knicks fans because Madison Square Garden is a tourist destination. I don't care that they sell out all the time. Billy Joel sells out every time he goes there, and he's got a banner up in MSG. So that's nothing. So the fact that the Nets have got the best player in the planet, the fact that they've got the big 3, there's definitely a lot more of a Nets fandom bubbling in the UK. I mean, we've got a Discord community of Nets fans strictly from the UK, and we hit 50 members this year. So that's not only casual fans, that's people that are like just in this, and like, Tyler is king of the staying up late team, and like we've got a live game chat channel in that, and there's a dozen people every night, like every Nets game, that's staying up on your phone chatting about the game, and it's dope, man. Yeah, it really is a Nets world,
global
baby.
Game. It is a global game. Everybody said their response to that question before we move on. Just trying to keep us on time. We're about to hit 20 minutes.
Yeah, I would just add to what Matt was saying, really, in that it's very obviously because we're a super team. Brooklyn Nets are a super team, for want of a better word. So with that, you will get a lot of bandwagon fans. You'll get a lot of people with a loose interest in the NBA who like basketball because they play it over here. They do play it in schools, like Matt said. you can go to any park and you'll see basketball hoops up along with the football nets. So there is a lot of basketball going on, but the following that the NBA has is quite limited. So outside of, if you've gone on holiday and watched a game, you're going to support that team. Otherwise, you're probably going to support the Lakers, the Knicks, or at the moment, or Golden State. You just support the big
Bulls
teams.
or the Celtics or someone with heritage.
Exactly, yeah. You get a lot of bandwagon Nets fans, which is fine. Like, all aboard. The more, the merrier. Like, if you only started watching the Brooklyn Nets last season because Kevin Durant played his first game in 500 odd games, welcome aboard. Get on this hype train and enjoy the celebration when the parade comes through Brooklyn. Like, the more, the merrier.
Facts. I love it. I love how you guys just know it. You just know what to say. Obviously, these are Nets fans. Nets world, baby. All right, let's get into some news narratives type of stuff. Obviously, there's been no games. There's no basketball to actually talk about. So let's talk about what's been in the news. Monday, we heard about Boston changing their mandate. On Monday, Mayor Michelle Wu unveiled a detailed plan that will require patrons 12 and over to show proof of vaccination before entering the premises of many indoor businesses, including entertainment venues. But there's an exception for a professional athlete sports team who entered a covered premises as part of their regular employment for purposes of competing. So what this means is TD Garden, where the Celtics play, players are going to be just fine playing there unvaccinated. That covers the Celtics and the Bruins. New York's vaccine mandate, which is instituted this fall, requires all residents to be vaccinated before entering the arena. They've changed it. Just the people watching. If you're entertaining, doesn't matter. You just got to test negative. All of this stuff is changing. All of the protocols are changing. The NBA is forced to re-examine their whole health and safety protocol situation. What are you guys' thoughts about one of our rivals, competitors, a place that we play? They're changing the mandate. Helps Kyrie, right? What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Be interesting to see, because obviously with Eric Adams coming in as the, what is he, governor of Brooklyn? You'll forgive my poor
Mayor,
knowledge
I
of
think.
Yeah, something like
Whatever.
A position of power in Brooklyn, right? He sets the mandates, and there was chat of him pre-election being like, I'll hook Kyrie up and I'll change the rules so Nets fans can get Kyrie back, and obviously that didn't come through. So it's interesting to see that Boston has made this decision, but it's a three-pronged thing, right? So it's the Nets that have said that he can't play. So as far as, New York state law, that's one thing, but it's the Nets that initially took the decision on October 12th. So if New York made the same decisions as Boston, then maybe that puts more pressure on the Nets front office to change their attitude to whether or not they allow Kyrie to play. So it's going to be very interesting to see if that happens. Personally, I think that I kind of said on an episode of BKT UK, right, available on all podcast platforms, that he would be, that it would be the first kind of domino to fall would be Sean Marks changing his tune, and whether or not he got pressure from KD and Harden and Kyrie is irrelevant. I think Sean Marks is the kind of bloke that if he wants to change his mind, he'll change his mind, and he's not going to just sort of stubbornly stick to a stance that he had a month ago, because things change. And I think he's a big enough bloke to kind of change if that's what's best for the team. But I'll be interested to know what you guys think.
I just had to sort of contain myself a little bit because I just got really excited at the thought that we are actually going to get to see Kyrie Irving play basketball for the Brooklyn Nets again, and that's a really exciting proposition that I completely doubted would happen again at times this season. I think it is good news for the Nets because, realistically speaking, we know, I think, is he a Nets fan, Eric Adams? I'm sure there's been hints of it in the past. Like Matt said, he's mentioned
a Brooklyn guy, so he's got to root for the Nets in some capacity, I would believe.
You'd have to think so, wouldn't you? I mean, at no point really, when he turned around and said we're not going to be changing the mandate, we're not lifting the mandate, doesn't necessarily mean that we're not going to be more reasonable when it comes to performers, athletes. And the more that we see this, I think Philadelphia have got a similar mandate in place that they have an exemption for athletes. The more cities across the states who take this approach, it only applies more and more pressure. Why is New York different? Why can't New York have a similar exception within their mandate. I mean, the mandates work. Get your shots, people, absolutely, 100%. But at the same time, if it's the age old, since the mandate was in place, why everybody's always asked the question, well, why can road teams come in there and back? Why can Bradley Beal play in the Barclays, but Kyrie Irving can't? Like, what's the difference? And you have to sort of look at that and think maybe there is an element of reason there. Well, why are we imposing this restriction on poor old Kyrie Irving that doesn't impact anyone else in the league in the same way? So I do think it only adds a little bit more pressure onto the. I don't know whether they'd feel the pressure, but you'd have to think it would add a little bit of pressure onto the head honchos in the governor's office to maybe make a move that just gives that a tiny little bit of an exception. Maybe just get one Kyrie Irving through the door and jobs are good, and then that's it. It rings all around, I think.
Yeah, I'd like to lead on that point of putting pressure on the governor because, I mean, you might tell me different, but isn't it quite a big thing for a governor or a mayor to win a sports title? It hasn't happened in New York for a long time, has it?
It hasn't happened since the Giants in 2012 brought their Super Bowl parade through. It would be big for Eric Adams to be helping host a parade this June when the Nets do it. Yeah. It'd
be big. So, I mean, again, I think, obviously, COVID hit New York like wildfire. It was the first place in the States to really get it, wasn't it? It tore through the city. So I think they kind of got to lead by example in terms of making sure people are vaccinated as quickly and as well as possible. Hopefully, Boston, Philadelphia, they're tweaking the rules. Maybe then New York are going to go, well, okay, we can. If it works in Boston, it works in Philly, it works in, I was going to say Utah then, but I don't know why that come into my head. Then we'll do the same. But for me, play Kyrie where you can, man. Basketball's a winning game. It is. I'm sorry, if you can only play road games, play him. For me, 100%. So we'll see how it unfolds.
All right, I'll have the last word on this. I think this is good. I don't think it hurts at all. I think it's good to see that another city is changing their mandate. I want to say that they originally had it so that you had to be vaccinated, or like this made news because there was a change for players to be exempt, whether they're in Boston or whether they're visiting. Good. Do I think New York adopts this strategy and shifts so that athletes, performers, visitors are already allowed to play, but do I think New York adapts this so that their own athletes and performers don't have to be vaccinated? I really don't. I think that New York is a different place than anywhere else. It's super crowded and populated here, and it takes a long time for things to change, and they didn't make these rules thinking about Kyrie Irving. They didn't make these rules thinking about the NBA, the Brooklyn Nets. They didn't think about the Knicks either. Like, it just wasn't one of those type of things, and I think it's subject to change. I don't think that's on Eric Adams' agenda, though. I think he's got way more important things, and I think as basketball fans, we focus on it. Like, come on, let Kyrie play, but Kyrie is one man. They're not changing any rules for one man. But it is good that the Brooklyn Nets last week on Friday said, we're going to play him on the road. And I never actually gave my take on that, and I see Brittany in the chat said, how do you guys feel about Kyrie coming back? Well, it isn't so much like a feeling. Like, we did the emergency episode where I was like, it's happening, the return of Kai. Kai is back. That was just emotion. Now that I've had time to think about it, I've said this on the radio a couple times. I've said this, I think I said this on Nets Kingdom. I think that the way that they presented it to the media, it was perfect, because this was the perfect window and perfect time. We're signing 10-day contracts for hardships. Our rookies are playing minutes way more than we ever expected them to. Our stars are already taxed, playing 40 minutes a night. It's not sustainable for them to keep up this rate. Now we push the Kyrie button 2 months after telling you that we weren't going to let him play on the road. Now we push that button to say, we don't care what you think. We're doing what's best for our team. And I think it's just the Nets flexing. Like, we also have Joe Harris waiting to come back. We have all of these players that you just discovered now in this last week, as far as these rookies that we're like, okay, these guys can contribute. David Duke Jr., Kessler Edwards, Day'Ron Sharpe. You're like, these rookies are ready to go. And then when you see Kevin Durant lead rookies to victory, knowing that Paul Millsap, James Johnson, LaMarcus Aldridge, James Harden are on the way back, the Nets just flexed on the entire NBA world and said, yeah, and we're going to bring Kyrie back and start the process of bringing Kyrie back, because there's obviously going to be a ramp up. And we all know that Kyrie tested positive, so he's got to get 2 negative tests before he can actually go into practicing and being with the team and playing on the road. I think Shams predicted January, mid-January, and we'll see. And I saw in the chat, let's see, that the NBA, the NBA already has changed protocols. The quarantine period, that 10 days, they're going to shorten that period. They're also going to change how they test guys and the protocols around them, right? If you're asymptomatic and you're not sick and you test positive, I think they're going to put more weight on the test being off or the test not being accurate before pulling a guy out and then all of the guys he's been in close contact with enter the protocol. The protocols were set up, I think, in the beginning of the season, before the beginning of the season, more like the beginning of the year, 2021. Now we're at the end of 21, going into 2022. It's all going to change. It's all subject to change. Let's change the topic and stay on Boston, stay with the Celtics. Last night in TD Garden, Jesus was resurrected. Joe Jesus himself, ISO Joe Johnson is back in the NBA. I don't know what is going on. Everybody is signing everybody. Lance Stevenson is back in the league. Isaiah Thomas is back in the league. And 40-year-old Joe Johnson, wearing number 55, 20 years after he was drafted by the Celtics, is back on the floor, giving guys half his age buckets. What do you guys think about the former Net, the ISO Joe clutch bucket at the buzzer killer for us that we all know and love? What do you guys think about Joe Johnson being with the Celtics?
I love it, man. So he's my first ever favorite Net, Joe Johnson. First Nets jersey I ever owned was a Joe Johnson jersey. And following on sort of on his socials and stuff, he still looks absolutely cut. Like, he looks in great shape. He still gets buckets. I think he's been Big 3 MVP or champion or something. So he still puts in the work. Would love to see him on this Nets team under different circumstances if we weren't trying to build for this championship run. But yeah, man, it's great to see. I love it. Absolutely love it. Sucks that he's gone to a sort of a Nets rival in Boston, although they're nowhere near us anymore. But yeah, it's the sheer poetry of him going back 20 years after getting drafted by the same franchise. It's beautiful to see. I love it. He's still got my favorite highlight of Nets history as well, with him dancing in front of Paul Pierce and putting him on his ass. That would just always forever live on. And yeah, love it. It's great to see.
I suppose the one, I hesitate to say good thing, but I suppose every cloud has a silver lining. And then the silver lining for the current COVID outbreak within the league is that it's giving a lot of players the first opportunity, in the case of the rookies stepping up, and also sort of older players, Lance Stevenson, Joe Johnson, another crack of the whip. They're getting one final swan song. They're coming in to be able to come back and play NBA basketball again. It's just a perfect feel-good story, isn't it? And Joe Johnson, as much as we begrudge him going to the Celtics, I mean, if he can go to the Celtics and get buckets, and the Celtics probably still aren't going to make a difference in any noise in the playoffs, like, it doesn't make a difference, does it? At least we get to see Joe ball out for a couple of minutes every night. So it's worth it. It works out. I just think it's just got to be a matter of time before we get Jamal Crawford back in the league as well. Just fingers crossed someone finds a 10-day spot for him somewhere.
Yeah, man, you literally just took my line. I was literally, I wasn't going to say anything apart from, can somebody please sign Jamal Crawford ASAP? But yeah, no, listen, it's good to see these guys coming back. You obviously first started watching basketball when they were playing. So yeah, I'm loving it. I saw something on Twitter earlier which made me laugh about the Celtics jersey design, basically saying that Joe Johnson could have wore his rookie jersey last night because they just don't ever change their jersey. But yeah, it's good.
Yeah, he wore 55. I'm like, come on, Joe, get a swaggier number than 55. That's a linebacker number. But yeah, Saint said we should have brought Joe back. And I feel like a lot of, like, in this past week, Nets fans were like, we should have signed IT. But I actually feel like we should have signed James Johnson just to bring that energy back for the fans. And is he better right now than Paul Millsap? Like, he might be better than Paul Millsap right now. I don't know. I obviously have a soft spot for Joe winning games for us, buzzer beaters. I went back and watched some of those clips and highlights, and that was when Brooklyn had the wooden floor that looked more like an orangey color, and those were good times, man. Joe Jesus, Kevin Garnett said, he's not always there when you call on him, but he's there when you need him. Joe Jesus. All right, let's move on. Sticking with the Boston theme, one other Boston Celtic and Net, Kyrie Irving. All right, so, there's not much to talk about with Kyrie, but there was a lot of chatter when he first came back. I think people were confused what was going on with him. Obviously, if you're announced to come back, you have to enter the health and safety protocols. Now, the confusion came when people weren't sure if he returned a positive test or an inconclusive test. We ended up finding out that he had a positive test. But for me, I'm like, that's not true. Kyrie doesn't go anywhere. And when he does, he wears a mask everywhere. It's impossible for him to test positive for COVID. But he did. So now he's got to test positive or test negative back-to-back times, and he's good to go. I think they said they expect him back in January. I'm trying to pull up the Nets schedule right now to see what game they said, because I know it, but I don't know it. I think they said on the road in like mid-January. What are you guys expecting from Kyrie's return, his return on the road, the chemistry with the team, with the Nets? Let's just talk a little bit about the impact of Kyrie Irving, not so much the COVID stuff, and just what you guys expect.
So almost the shame of it is that if he's only playing road games, the Nets' road record is pretty much impeccable.
Right.
So it can only kind of go one way, which is down. Like if all of a sudden, get it out of the way, in terms of Kyrie fitting with the players and being back in shape and looking sharp and playing basketball, he's not going to miss a beat. He's a basketball artist, a basketball savant. He loves this game. There's no way he's not going to go out there and get buckets and take ankles and all this kind of stuff. So the narrative sort of angle of it is that he's going to come back, and if we do great, then it's Kyrie, decided to come back. Now the Nets were looking good, so he can come back and get some glory. If Kyrie comes back and the Nets are bad, then, oh my God, they were doing so well before Kyrie came back. Isn't he terrible? He's upset all this thing. He's a distraction. So that's the way it's going to fall. On the court, I think it's going to be dope, and I think we're going to see, like you alluded to earlier, Keith, is going to see a lot less minutes from KD and James Harden. Hopefully, I think we see more rejuvenation out of James Harden as well, where he's had this kind of doesn't quite know when to score, when to facilitate sort of conflict in his head. He kind of alluded to. I think that's going to be a lot clearer when he does play with Kyrie. And yeah, I think the Nets are going to get a bit more of their swagger back. He's the kind of X factor that wins you these games against the good teams. He's a spotlight player. He shows up. He's showbiz. He's prime time. He's who you buy the tickets for. So I think in terms of that, it's like Tyler said earlier. If you got Kyrie, you play Kyrie, and because he wins you games. And I think that's what the Nets are going to be after when he comes back.
The thing that does it for me, I think, regardless of the narrative, it's just going to be amazing. Like Matt said, there's definitely going to be some way Kyrie will get blamed for coming back to play basketball. Like it wasn't his choice to not play on the road up until this point, but you can guarantee that it'll be the spotlight is going to be on him for he's now decided to come back and he wants a slice of the pie. But to be honest, I'm here for it. I absolutely love it. The more narrative, the better. The more anti-Kyrie slander that man gets, I'm here for it, because when he's cruising through Brooklyn, well, is he going to be allowed to? He'll be allowed at the parade because it's outdoors. When he's cruising through Brooklyn with his mask on and his championship ring on his finger, like, you can't talk to him. You can't chat to Kyrie then. So the media can say what they want. The rival fan bases can say what they want about Kyrie Irving, his intentions. He's a bad teammate. He's being selfish or whatever. save it. Like, he's not trying to hear it. We're not trying to hear it. And he's definitely not going to want to hear it when he's sat atop of the team bus cruising through Brooklyn, because, like you say, he's the X factor. He's the difference between losing a close game and winning a close game. You've even on, if he only plays half the games of the season, you've got to account that's got to be another handful of wins. Like, it's another half a dozen wins quite easily on the road. So when it gets to the playoffs, we're going to be tanking to get that away court advantage, just so we can get Kyrie Irving in the building for 4 games instead of 3. So it's just going to be, I think, like you said, Matt, he's not going to miss a beat. He's going to be straight back to it. He's going to be, where did he leave off? 50, 40, 90 on 27 points a game. Like, you could easily see performance like that from him, because he's going to be well rested all the time. You're going to have like the most physically refreshed version of Kyrie Irving you will ever see in your life. So it's going to be crazy, absolutely crazy. Strap yourselves in.
I've got nothing to add. You two summed it up pretty well there. You know, I'm really looking forward to Kyrie Irving coming back. A very close second is the absolute meltdown from Stephen A. Smith when he starts hitting those clutch shots and the Nets start winning. I'm here for the 2-minute outputs from his show where he's having an absolute cry about Kyrie Irving. Very close second.
Is everyone listening? Turn your headphones up, turn your volume up on the podcast. Make sure you guys are listening to this next part. When Kyrie comes back, we are going full villain energy. We are going full on scariest of hours. Scary hours are back. The big 3 on road on a world tour. Nets world tour. Remember we said Nets world tour when the schedule came out? It looks like that January 12th Bulls game could be the return date game on the road. I would love that, because the Bulls got us on the second half of a back-to-back twice. So let's go to the United Center, the Madhouse on Madison, where all those championships were won, and let's welcome Kyrie back as a villain. He's going to be villainized. They dragged him for months. They're going to hate on this guy no matter what. When we started the We Support Kyrie shirts, we started those way before the vaccine. We started making We Support Kyrie shirts because this guy gets villainized no matter what he does. If he goes to his sister and dad's birthday, if his kid is born and he goes on a leave, if our nation's capital gets attacked and he doesn't want to play basketball, he gets killed for it. Remember when Kyrie would take those breaks last year and we'd be like, damn, we miss Kyrie. And Kyrie would come back. What would he do the first game back every time? He would kill. He would go and drop 30 points. He would get buckets. He'd show you something that you've never seen before. It was kind of like his way of doing the talking, because all of the internet talk, all the keyboard warriors, all the trolls, all the reporters, he's not going to go back and forth with you on Twitter. He's going to get on the court and let the game do the talking for him and absolutely kill. So expect that from a fresh Kyrie, right? Theo said he's going to be fresh. On Nets Kingdom, I said in June, that was when he got his ankle injury. I played football growing up. I sprained my ankle like 3 different times. I broke my foot. I know about recovering from ankle injuries. It's a lot of ice. It's a lot of stem. It's a lot of working the joints around the ligaments in your ankle, getting them loosened back up, and then strengthening them. If he would have came back at the start of the season, he would have only probably had, 4 months in the summer, whatever. Now he's had a whole half a year to recover from that injury. That injury is a thing of the past. Kyrie might be bouncier again. He might be dunking like he was dunking in games last year. I expect Kyrie to come back and kill full villain energy. The big bad Brooklyn Nets are here. The big 3, scary hours. Everybody look out, and we're not tanking. We're in first, and this year, if you guys notice, the energy around first place and seeding has changed. Last year, we had a couple games. We had a game against the Sixers that we could have actually put Kyrie back in the game to try and steal at the end, and we didn't. We bowed out. We gave them the 1 seed, and we said, we'll just get in the tournament, and whatever happens, happens. This year, there's a different approach. Barclays, the Clays, is a lot better this year. The energy, the fans, we're selling out games. They've renovated. They've added some new bars. It's an awesome place to watch a basketball game. Home court matters. And since right now, as it currently stands, which when we get to the playoffs, it's all going to change. I think Kyrie's going to be a full-time player by then. But if we're imagining this playoffs where we have home court for Game 7, the Nets just got to do one simple thing. Win it in 4, 5, or 6. Nets in 4, 5, or 6. We don't need a Game 7 on our home floor without Kyrie. We will beat you in 6 games or less. Agreed? Everyone think that's doable for the Nets that are going to get Kyrie back and be able to compete against these top teams. We're looking, right? We're looking in the East right now. Who are we afraid of? I guess the Bulls, the Bucks, the Heat, the Cavs. Not so much with Kyrie and not so much with this depth that we found now. What didn't we have last year? Depth. What didn't we have in the playoffs that we needed last year? A bench. Everybody in the world knew it was either KD is dropping 50 or the Nets are done. Now we seem to have figured it out. In Marks We Trust, he's solved some problems. It's like we have 2 different teams we could run. Good problems to have. All right, we're getting close to the last 10 minutes or so. I want to look at the schedule. And I want to talk about the news that came out. It really doesn't matter about Wenyen Gabriel. Nets officially signed Wenyen Gabriel to a 10-day deal with the hardship and all of these 10-day guys. There's no room for these guys, honestly. They're not going to – I don't think any of these 10-day guys, Langston Galloway, James Ennis, Shaquille Harrison – Wenyen Gabriel, do you guys care about these 10-day guys? Do you think any of them are actually going to become I just don't think, I think it's just a thing that we're doing. You get bodies so that you can have the minimum 8, but I don't see any of these guys actually contributing to this team because we've got too much talent.
That's exactly what I think.
Sorry to jump in. Sorry to jump over you there, Matt. I just want to say, Keith, the fact you could even remember all 4 of those hardship players' names, I think, is impressive and a testament to your knowledge.
And I'm looking at these guys on the court. I'm like, okay, that's Shaquille Harrison. What the fuck? Who are these guys?
Sorry, Matt.
No, I was just going to say, it reminds me of, do you remember there was that video of, there was a Pelicans fan that kind of snuck on in full tracksuit, hood up, when he got in for the shoot around. He managed to get on the court and he was give me the ball. And I think he managed to get up a shot. But it's just one of these things where it's just these are just people. And obviously to get an NBA contract of any shape or form, they've got to be incredibly good athletes because their number might be called. But unless it's barring some freak injury or the Nets are getting blown out, they're not going to see anything else but garbage time. This is just because I think I heard Steve Nash say that they have to sign these people. They can't just be ravaged by injuries, not be able to put a team out and force a postponement because the NBA's got to keep getting a product out there. The Nets have to sign these guys, and these are just the people that are about that, I don't know how much scouting goes on or anything like that, but as far as I'm concerned, these guys are just bodies, and that we thank them very much for coming in and stepping up. It's that ultimate next man up, but yeah, I don't see him doing anything of any kind of consequence while they're with the Nets, unfortunately.
No, I think
with the rate that sorry, Thago.
No, go on, see.
I think with the rate that the Nets games are getting called off as well, I think we could well be more or less, not at full strength, but well on our way to having the majority of our roster back before these guys even get an opportunity to play a game. I think, obviously, Christmas, all eyes are on Christmas Day at the moment. There's no chance that game's getting canned, but I think there's not going to be a lot of minutes to go around even for these 10-day guys at this rate. We've reached a stage, not just in the Nets organization, but throughout the NBA where players are being signed to these 10-day contracts out of the G League who even some of the most seasoned G League reporters might not have heard of, don't recognize the names. We're really slim pickings is the expression that we'd use here in the UK to describe the quality of these players that are being signed to these 10-day deals. I mean, and fair play to them. Like Matt said, they've got to be ready. They've got to be in a great physical condition. They've got to be prepared to step into the breach, and the number could get called. And fair play to them. I mean, I'm sure the paycheck, the NBA paycheck, will probably help. But respect to these guys for doing the bit. But like you say, it's difficult to see any of these guys having anything outside of really minimal impact.
I've got notifications on for Shams and Woj. And what's been going out lately? Brooklyn Nets sign so-and-so. Who? Cleveland Cavaliers sign so-and-so. Who? I mean, they're working harder now than they work during free agency and deadline. They're going hard. But one thing I will say is I read something. I can't remember who reported it or who wrote it, but I read it. James Ennis, apparently, obviously Steve Clifford's advisor to Steve Nash, assistant to Steve Nash, whatever Steve Clifford is, and obviously Ennis was with him at Orlando Magic last year. Apparently, he shoots a 3-ball really, really well. I mean, the other guys, Galloway, I can't even remember the other two's names. Sorry, but apparently, yeah, James Ennis is a legit person.
I'm always fascinated by these 10 days. Like, I can remember the names from last year. I always throw the names of like Noah Vonleh, Andre Roberson, Iman Shumpert, Norvell Pell, guys like that we signed last year, and they didn't have a chance to stand with the team. Mike James ended up being the best one out of those guys.
Oh, Dante Hall had his moment in the bubble, man, where he absolutely buoyed Giannis. I will forever hold a candle for Dante Hall, man.
The bubble
that was
nets.
Unreal.
The bubble nets, unreal. All right, well, in wrapping this thing up, we learned today that James Harden, Paul Millsap, and Javon Carter have been cleared for the game. Theo said it. There is no way they postpone the Christmas games. It's too much money for the league. It's too much exposure for the league while everyone is at home with their family, friends. Like, they need that airtime. It's like the NFL having Thanksgiving. The NBA is not giving up Christmas. They're going to push through. Against the Lakers, who are also down guys. And, some articles came out today about the silver lining in all of this being that, guys like Kevin Durant and James Harden have had extended rest now. They were taxed after playing 35, 40 minutes a night. Now they get this rest. We learned about our rookies. Now we know which rookies we think can be primetime players. We just got to get everybody back. But speaking of the rookies, we also learned that Cam Thomas, David Duke, and Kessler Edwards have been entered into the protocol. So they won't be back. 13 Nets entered the protocols December 13th. Nash said he expects the Christmas game with the Lakers to still be on. Yeah, so I'm not exactly sure who's going to be available. I don't have that in front of me. It doesn't matter. These games right now, none of them really matter. They matter as far as the standings. They matter in wins and losses, but you guys see what's happening across the league. Everyone's in health and safety protocols. I just saw a tweet from Shams that Bradley Beal, unvaccinated, Bradley Beal is in health and safety protocols, and he was about to play in the Garden tonight. Right here in New York. So that's not going down. And it is what it is. You're pushing through. You're playing in a pandemic. It's the holiday coming up. It is what it is. All right, so what we'll do here is take questions from the chat. If anybody has any questions they want to throw out, throw them in there, and I'll put them up on the screen. Where Brooklyn at? That's not a question. That's just like a common saying amongst Nets fans.
We're everywhere.
Where Brooklyn at? I need to get on Where Brooklyn at. If somebody is watching, what's up? I sent plenty pictures in. I sent in a picture from London. Last year I went to the London games, or 2 years ago, 2019, I went to the London games. Let me see if I got anything from that. I do. Boom. MLB London series. And I knew to bring my Vince Carter Nets jersey because that's when the clean sweep happened. And I took a picture. I was getting on the tube, and I sent it into Where Brooklyn at, and they haven't shown me any love yet, man. I'm just playing. I get plenty of love. I don't need it.
I've seen you on that big screen enough, Keith. I know you get love.
I'm completely joking. I get plenty of love. I don't need to be on Where Brooklyn at. I would like to one day, but I don't need it. All right, so anything from the chat? Let's see. Nets World. Jeremy Lin. I want the return of Jeremy Lin. Yeah, that would be scary hours for sure. He's not going to be over here. Mike LeBron James. Any chance we have KD for Christmas against LeBum? I think they're working on it. It's KD. He's the MVP. He's the best player in the league, right? They want to see KD on the court, but I don't know. I think they're kind of too beat. Nets waiting till tomorrow for KD. We'll find out tomorrow, I guess. Because now, with the news that they're saying, instead of it being a 10-day thing, they're trying to change the quarantine period till 6. Let me get the actual tweet from Shams so I'm not just throwing stuff out there. The NBA and NBPA are in talks on shortened quarantines for players who test positive for COVID-19. Sides are discussing allowing players to return faster as soon as 6 days based on the testing cycle threshold. So, I mean, if you're a healthy NBA player, I don't even want to get into that conversation, but you know what I'm going to say. These guys should be fine. They should be playing and practicing and doing what they are paid millions to do. I get the safety, keeping the general public safe, but, like, we need to adjust, and I think we are. All right, any chance, Nets, waiting till tomorrow? What do you think about the Joe Harris trade rumors? I just think they're rumors. Honestly, I think the Nets are very excited to get Joe back. I know I am. I think the Nets value him more than any other team in the league based on the fact that he's ours and we paid him. I think coming back from that ankle, I think this is when that's another thing. Add the Joe Harris revenge tour into the scariest of hours, because I think this is where we see Joe's revenge kick in. He had the rough playoff run. People were talking about trading him in the summer. People wanted him out of here then. He fought through that. He started this year, had some good moments, but overall it was mid because you're expecting this guy to come back and be a 45% shooter from deep. I think the time away with this ankle injury, watching the team win without him, watching rookies play, rookies that he's helped in practice like Kessler Edwards, guys that he didn't think would be getting these minutes, that perspective, like Kevin Durant sat out for a year and he's come back a better version of himself, that time that Joe Harris just got watching the Nets without him is going to trigger something in him where he's going to come out and just knock down threes, and we're going to get Joey Buckets back. Revenge tour coming soon. Book it.
For sure. I think another thing as well is for the past couple of seasons, Joe Harris has had to be like the second, third option on this team with sort of availability and injuries and you know, just the other people around him. And, you know, he's not just sort of Joe on the sidelines anymore, quietly being the best shooter in the league anymore. People know who Joe Harris is. So, you know, you don't have to, you know, scout a team that hard to realize that you got to put, you know, people on Joe Harris, and he's all his shots are contested now. So you take Joe Harris out of the equation for a little while and you get KD back on his MVP form. All of a sudden, if he comes back in, people, you know, maybe forget about Joe a little bit more, and then he can just start lighting people up. But in terms of trades, Joey ain't going nowhere, man. He's part of the furniture. And yeah, I can't wait till he comes back.
I think it's probably fair to say nobody's off limits. It depends what offers on the table. But I think realistically speaking, I don't see any possible trade out there for Joe Harris that would bring back, that would fill a need for the Nets. I mean, we've seen it over this spell since he's been sidelined, Harris, how much we have a need for 3-point shooters. I mean, we've signed a bunch of 3-and-D guys who are all D and no 3. We need some of that that spacing that Joe brings. So what better spacing? I mean, you don't get better spacing than the best 3-point shooter in the league statistically. Like, he is the perfect. If you could have one solution for the Nets' problems right now, if it's not Kyrie Irving, it's probably Joe Harris. Like, solves a lot of the problems that the Nets face in games that they don't lose. I mean, I say it like we're having a really difficult spell and we're slipping down the standings or whatever. We're still winning these games. We're still competing in every game that we play. But Joe Harris is just going to take them to another level. You combine that with the fact that you've got Kyrie Irving coming back into the game. It's going to be exactly what we expected it to be sort of last season. You're going to have teams are going to be defending Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving. Joe Harris is going to be open. So why would we give that up for? I mean, what do we want? Another rim rolling big man? Like, it's difficult to see where we get anywhere near as much value to the team as what Joe Harris is going to bring. So I don't think, unless it's like an otherworldly offer, I don't think Joe's going to set foot outside of the HSS anytime soon.
I'm going to start off by saying I am a huge Joe Harris fan before I throw out this next comment, because I just like playing devil's advocate. But, you know, big Joe Harris fan, saw a rumor that the Cavaliers are interested in Joe Harris. Now, if the financials worked, would you bring back Jarrett Allen for Joe Harris?
They're not going to do that.
Well,
Straight up, you're saying if it was a trade, hypothetically,
saying,
if it was they just gave Jarrett Allen $100 million.
But
that's such a Nets fan dream.
They've just drafted Evan Mobley, you know, another big guy. I'm just saying, if If they offered us Jarrett Allen, would you take it?
Of course. I love Big J. I have a dream that he comes back, but he just signed, I think, a 5-year, $100 million deal with them. If they're interested in Joey, they're probably going to try and send us, I don't know, Isaac Okoro or Markkanen or Kevin Love. I think I saw somebody say Kevin Love in here. What do you think? What do you think if we can trade for Kevin Love? No. I get it because he's a Brooklyn guy and he's been around, but they've been rumoring him, and it's like, no, he's on their bench for a reason. There was another one I saw about, Keith, any moves for three-point shooting before the deadline? I really think the Nets are going to hold. Like, I think they're going to hold. And really, if anything, I think you'll see an addition by subtraction. I think we have all the players that we need. I don't think we're necessarily looking for another shooter. We have a shooter in Joe Harris. When he comes back, he's the guy. Patty can shoot the three. Obviously, KD. And, don't forget about Kyrie shooting the three. Like, I don't think we're desperate for a shooter. I don't think we're going to trade for one. I think we need to do our best to get, like, Javon Carter up out of here. I don't think we're going to trade Blake Griffin, but he could go. I don't know. We'll see. Bruce Brown, like, there's going to be some guys that kind of fall by the wayside. Now that we see what these rookies can do, it's going to be even more competitive.
I think Bruce Brown could go, knowing that he signed a 1-year deal and he's probably not going to come back next year and get the bag. I think he could be a trade chip.
Yeah, in Marks we trust. And what I'll say before closing is, February 10th is going to approach fast. And these guys haven't picked up the phone for Kyrie. Like, they're in control. Joe Tsai, Sean Marks, in the Nets world, they're in control. That's why I said they flexed on the league and they pushed the Kyrie button months before some people thought. I thought it would happen after the trade deadline. That was my timeline. They beat me by 2 months. Some people said it wouldn't happen all year. And the Nets just punched those people in the face and said, yeah, we're going to actually get a return on our investment and bring Kyrie back. We're not hurting for anything. We're not wanting for anything. It is a good time to be a Nets fan. The last thing I want to do is look at the schedule. Hopefully KD gets cleared. We're still waiting till tomorrow to see who total. We don't have the names that are going to be available for tomorrow. Some people will clear tomorrow, and then they will play Saturday. But the next game is Nets-Lakers Saturday, and we're on the road. So we, play the Lakers in the Staples Center, and then Monday we'll play the Clippers in the Staples Center. We'll come back home December 30th to play the Sixers in Brooklyn to start a homestand, a 3-game homestand that'll have the Clippers come to us on New Year's Day. And then on Monday, January 3rd, we'll have Ja Morant and the Grizzlies. And then we'll go back on the road. But basically, I'm telling you that because these games are the games that are going to pass before Kyrie's return. 2 Lakers games 2 LA games in the Staples Center. We have the Sixers at home. We have the Clippers at home, the Grizzlies at home. We'll go on the road against the Pacers. The Bucks will play in Brooklyn against us. The Spurs will play in Brooklyn against us on January 9th. And then I think January 12th against the Bulls, we can expect to see Kyrie back. I don't know if it's going to be a ramp-up game or what, but mid-January is what we're looking at. So it's going to be a good start to the year. It's going to be fun. Hope you guys have fun listening to my mates, my blokes from across the pond. I love connecting the Nets world. We have some more guys that were in the fold to be on this. It was going to be more of a Nets world, global episode, but it's good to start with, the UK, the London guys, and then we'll bring those guys together and maybe we can get a big, one with 7 or 8 of us. But guys, go ahead and plug yourselves. Let people know where they can find you, your podcast, where they just want to interact with you, talk to you, follow your stuff. Go ahead and plug yourself so people know where you are online.
Wicked. Yeah, thanks. Again, my name's Matt. Best place to find me is on Twitter. You can find me at UK Nets Fans. Give me a follow. And every week, me, myself, and 2 other guys do a podcast called BK to UK, the British Brooklyn Nets podcast. That's available everywhere, streams weekly on YouTube and Twitch as well. So, yeah, let's go Nets.
Yeah, you can catch me and a Bulls fan and a Rockets fan talk about everything in the league. Imagine that dynamic this season. I mean, we've got a Rockets fan who doesn't watch any of the games because why would you these days? And a Bulls fan who feels like I felt 2 seasons ago when we signed KD and Kyrie. So it's listen to us talk absolutely nonsense for an hour every couple of weeks. That's at Met the Criteria on Twitter and Instagram. You can check out the podcast. Met the Criteria on everywhere you get your pods, basically. Shout us out, let us know.
I'm Tyler. You can follow me on Twitter at BKN Nets London. Follow me for all your hot takes like trading Joey Harris for Jarrett Allen and all the serious stuff. Check out Matt from UK, sorry, not London. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you guys. Obviously, Talkin Nets. Subscribe to the pod. Subscribe to the YouTube. I think we're like 70 subscribers away on YouTube from becoming monetized. Then people can throw money in the chat. That'll be cool. That'll help us in our next step for where we're taking the brand. Subscribe to the pod. Write a review. We have no reviews since the end of last season. Got to get back on the reviews. Call the voicemail. We also had no voicemails. Obviously, I get it. There hasn't been a game in like 5 days since Saturday, and there's not much to talk about besides COVID. But if you have a question or a take or something you want heard on Talkin Nets, call 201-870-0461. Obviously, you can find me on the radio at WFAN, 7 p.m. to midnight. If there's no football game or basketball game, KM till AM, I'm taking your calls and talking sports with you there. And that's all we've got. Follow Talkin Nets on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch now. And I'll be back with a new episode sometime next week after we get 2 games in. So I guess after we get the Lakers and Clippers games in, we'll come back and talk about those. Thanks again for everybody in the chat that hung out with us. And bigger thanks to my guys from the UK. That's it, y'all. Let's go Nets. Let's go Nets. Brooklyn.